Towards the end of the cancer, cancer is a fast-growing cell. In other words, it never stops duplicating. It's hungry, all right? And it invades, because in the last stages, it's invaded, okay? And so it has invaded and it has grabbed a hold to every blood vessel and everything it can attach to, okay? And the body's got to feed it. That's why the cancer grows, okay? And so eventually what happens is the body begins breaking these down to feed the cancer. That's why a lot of times people at the end stage of cancer, right before they die, they're usually just skin and bones. Yeah.
So why is it the body feeds it? Doesn't it know that it's a foreign object and has to kill it?
Oh, but see, cancer takes over. So in other words, the body, when cancer shows up, the body has used every defense possible to kill that cancer cell. And that cancer cell has won the battle, okay? And that's why it's better to catch it early than late. Because if you catch it early, you don't have so many cells to deal with, okay?
And then doesn't some forms mutate?
Yes. What happens is the genes that are working have been attacked, and the genes originally that are attacked, the body has defenses to kill them, to kill that cell, but once it's been attacked a certain amount of times, it just can't do it anymore, and that's when the cancer cell continues to grow and divide.
So does that mean that the cancer basically eats at the muscle?
Actually, what happens is wherever that cancer might be located, because it has invaded, it's just gotten all the blood vessels and everything that it can get, because it's taking all the nutrients that should be going to other parts of the body starts breaking that down to put nutrients back into the bloodstream, and from the bloodstream, it goes into the cancer. Yeah. So, it's, muscle, I think, is very unique, okay? Whether we talk about it being skeletal smooth or cardiac, okay? In my studying that I have done, all three are extremely unique. And what makes them work is what gets really interesting. But we know that we have these three types of muscle. We've got the skeletal, we've got the smooth, we've got the cardiac. So far as what this muscle type is for skeletal, this is what we're seeing on the outside, okay? This is your projection outward. It is, for the most part, voluntary, like I said. Under the smooth muscle, this is making up our hollow organs. We're going to find it in blood vessels. We're going to have it in the eye. We're going to have it in glands. We're going to have it in the skin. Think about the little smooth muscle for the hairs that give us goosebumps, okay? Some of the smooth muscle is responsible for making sure that we propel urine. And notice I didn't say just out the body. Note that I just said propel urine, okay? Mixing food, controlling the pupils, helping with the blood flow. Autorhythmic. The nervous system. The nervous system is going to have the ability, okay, to make it function, but in some cases, the smooth muscle is going to be able to function without any input, we should say, from the nervous system. Because when we hear the term autorhythmic, what that is telling us is it's doing it itself. And there is an area that does that of the body for the smooth muscle. It's really cool.
What area?
In the intestines. We have control over the smooth muscle by the endocrine and our autonomic nervous system. Just remember those terms for right now, because we're going to come back to that, okay, in part 2. We're gonna also come back to the heart in part 2. We're gonna come back to the cardiac. The heart is a pump, okay? Job, move the blood. Okay, that's a huge job, okay? I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of glad I don't have to make sure my heart beats. Because if I had to make sure and tell my heart beat, 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 I'd be out in no time flat. Okay, because I'd forget. That's just point blank. Autorhythmic. And when I say autorhythmic, totally autorhythmic. Nervous system, we can affect the beating of the heart, the output of the heart. We can have an effect on it, but for it to actually work, it's got its own little system to make it beat. We do affect it by way of the endocrine and the nervous system, which is kind of interesting.
I don't remember what movie it was, but someone, he had that disease where you're supposed to be in the iron lung because you don't have the muscle. Is it muscle that dies in the diaphragm?
That's to try to regulate pressures of the oxygen within the blood when they're placed into the iron lung, I think. So it was
It was a guy who had to remember to breathe.
Cool.
And he had to like think about it, and it wasn't automatic.
Well, if you remember the name of the movie, tell me. I'll look it up. It'll come to you at a point when you're not even thinking about it anymore. That's what happens.
Was it based off a true story?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was like
Was it that
small
famous guy?
character or something in a movie.
So,
Was it that famous guy?
well, do you guys remember this right here? Okay. Remember when we were looking at all those slides? And there was a slide of, I think, skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and then there was a slide with all three on there. Okay, now, this is where I'm going to have to really get you to think outside the box about what cell structure is. Because at this point, we have learned, well, I kind of took you outside the box when I started making you look at the cuboidal and the squamous and the columnar and that sort of thing. I made you all think outside the box about a cell, right? Right. Okay. Now, I'm going to push that a little bit further. Because when I say now, muscle fiber, muscle cell, I'm saying the same thing. This is when I say, if I call it a muscle fiber, recognize that I'm talking about a muscle cell. If I say muscle cell, recognize I'm talking about a muscle fiber. Okay? So, what does that mean? It means that for some of these cells, they can be huge. Longest muscle of the body, the sartorius. If I were to peel this down to one fiber, one cell, I would simply peel it this way and then hold it like this. And that entire length of it is one cell. That one muscle fiber is one cell. Therefore, the reason skeletal muscle is multinucleated. It has multiple nuclei. So, skeletal muscle, it's tubular. And I'm showing my age here. Fast times at Ridgemont High. It's tubular, man. Okay? It's these cylinders that are together. Just one right after another, making up that muscle. Definitely has the striated appearance and definitely has the nuclei, okay? Mitochondria also are going to be huge, okay? This was smooth muscle. They're just spindle shaped, big in the middle, thin at the ends, okay? One nucleus per cell, so it'd be cell, 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 cell. Over here, for the cardiac muscle, looks similar to the skeletal muscle. The difference is it's cell to cell to cell to cell to cell to cell. Each cell has its own nucleus. And then it had those dark bands that were the intercalated discs. All right? So, our focus right now is mostly going to be this one, the skeletal muscle. So the structure of the skeletal muscle. Once again, if I say muscle cell, I mean a fiber. If I say muscle fiber, I mean a muscle cell. Okay? We're going to find there is connective tissue associated with it. There are blood vessels, and there are nerves. Those fibers, definitely long, cylindrical, multinucleated. Depending upon the muscle, the diameter can change. If you think about muscles in the lower limbs, these muscles are big, okay? And therefore, the diameter of a fiber would be bigger. Up here, muscles are still big, okay? But the diameter doesn't have to be as big, okay? So depending upon where that muscle is found will determine the diameter. They come from myoblasts. So anytime you hear the term myo, that's going to let you know muscle. And then, if you remember, blasts give rise to. So the myoblasts, the number that was created at the time of fertilization and the development of this tissue, whatever that number was, that's it. The only thing you can do is increase its size. You cannot increase its number.
But if you got into like a really bad car accident or you had surgery or something happened and your muscle tissue was damaged somehow, cut through or something, it would repair itself though, correct?
Shark Tank.
It can. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will, because depending upon the severity of the damage, the muscle tissue can actually die. Now, the reason for that is going to be the nerve supply to it. Because if the nerve supply is cut off, that tissue atrophies and dies. So it would depend on the extent of the damage.